Hello, and welcome back to the Long Distance Love Bombs podcast. It's me, your host, Dr. Jeremy Goldberg, and my guest today is Whapio. Who is Whapio? Great question, and one that I asked my partner, Kendra Adachi, when she sent me a podcast and said, "Hey, you should listen to Whapio. You should listen to this lady." And I immediately, reactively thought, "Oh, here we go. Who is this? Who is this person? Who is this witchy astrological lady that you're going to send me to listen to?" Because Kendra and I approach things very differently. I am much more from the science, evidence, rationality, thinking ways of living. And she is much more in touch with the intuitive, ethereal, woo woo, touchy feely space. And I mean that with complete respect and admiration, different ways of moving through the world. And so I was like, okay, let me check this lady out. And I listened to the podcast that she was on, and I was blown away by her wisdom and her eloquence and the way that she seemingly effortlessly oozes eldership and wisdom and compassion and love and knowledge. So Whapio runs an online space called the Matrona, which is a portal to the new millennium. She offers programs in quantum birth, holistic midwifery, and wisdom keeping. So she's essentially, for more than 20 years, offered holistic education for midwives, doulas, and birth attendants. She also has a program called the Illuminated Wise Woman. And in this conversation, we talk about birth and the way that she views birth after her multiple decades of experience witnessing birth and giving birth and helping people through birth. And she has various stages that she describes. And I found this conversation so helpful. I learned so much. And I am so excited for you to listen to this one with Whapio. And I think she is a really great communicator. She is an incredible and understanding listener. And she's just somebody that I feel like when you are engaged with her, it's like, oh, you know your shit. Like you know what you are talking about in your bones, in your marrow. Like your knowledge lives in your bone marrow. So, this conversation with Whapio, we talk about the birthing process, the various steps and stages that happen during that process, what it's like, what might occur, what might not occur. And I just loved it. And additionally, Whapio was kind enough to have a conversation with me and Kendra. And so I'm going to put that episode out as like a bonus content. It's mostly just us talking about our experience and where we're at in preparation. But Whapio dropped so many wisdom bombs on us that at several points in that conversation, I thought, oh, a lot of people would benefit from hearing this too. So I'm going to put that out at some stage for you to listen to. And if you are interested in learning more about birth or midwifery or melding the intuitive with the academic, melding the mystical with the intelligent, Whapio has an entire online space called the Matrona that I will put links in the show notes to. And you can dive into all of the alchemy and transformation and understanding that she has made freely available for you. And I know that she also has a mailing list and does in-person events too. So if you're loving this, as I think and hope and believe that you will, you can click the links in the show notes to learn more from Whapio. Okay, that was a long, meandering introduction. And now it's time for the show. So enjoy this conversation with Whapio. And that should be us underway. But in classic sense, we were just talking and talking, and I was like, we should record this. This feels like a podcast that we could do. But Whapio, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being here. And for those, just to set the scene, and we can dive back into where I just interrupted us. But for those listening that have no idea who Whapio is or what you do, can you briefly introduce yourself?
Sure. Okay. I have I'm a mother and I've given birth twice. Okay. Uh Birth was one of the most amazing things that I have ever done. It was the hardest, but the most wonderful. And I decided when I had my first home birth, that this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, is to sit with women and families at birth, to hear what they wanted, to facilitate them in any way that I could. All right. Because both of my birthings were so precious to me. And I felt like this is such a precious, precious time. I mean, you could have many babies, but you'll never have this one again. So it matters. It matters how you orchestrate your birth. And this is what I have always been a big proponent of, is families orchestrating their births. And then I'm here to help you facilitate that, make it easier for you. I don't look at myself as a manager, but rather a mentor. And I feel over the years, that's what women have shared with me. We don't really need to be managed. As we were saying yesterday, the being in birth now for 42 years, both practicing birth, midwifery, and teaching for the last 22, I have seen some changes. And the biggest change I've seen is that women and families are showing up for their births. They know it's going to be painful and they'll deal with it. Why? Because this is the most transformational experience in the world. Okay. And I'm so happy to be riding on that wave, okay, of something that to me really matters.
Hmm.
Okay. So that's kind of who I am. And I've been doing that for 42 years, just following women and families around. And then I'd love to talk, as we unfold, just what women have taught me.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've been a midwife for 4 decades, and I know you also have a school where you teach midwifery. Is that the correct pronunciation?
Yep. It's a midwifery education program, year long. Okay. And it provides a matrix for young women or old women or anyone who wants to be a part of the revolution and evolution of birth. Okay. This will get you in the door in terms of you'll have academics behind you, you'll have wisdom keeping, you'll have a system of medicine, homeopathy that is interwoven, and you'll also have all of this on the platform of a holistic perspective, a quantum, even for me, a quantum perspective.
Yeah.
All right. So
What is
yeah.
that? Just to clarify, like, what does that mean to you, a quantum perspective on birthing?
Well, first of all, I love the word quantum. It opens the universe to me. It opens the doors of the universe. It's a leap ahead of what we're doing now. And so for me, quantum birthing is not managing women, but mentoring women instead, having the same things, the same education as a midwife, but midwives manage couples in birth. That's what their job is. I don't want to do that. I don't want to make your decisions for you. I want you to, you know, I want to share what options that there are and have you make the choices. And I feel like this is very forward thinking. Women and families making their own choices, and of course being responsible too for the choices that they make. To me, this is forward. This is a leap ahead. This is evolutionary. Birthing folk making their own choices with a caregiver who accompanies them and facilitates them. That's the quantum paradigm for me.
Yeah. So you've been doing this since the 80s. Like what changes have you seen? Like, that's a very broad, generic question, but what shifts have you seen in the culture, amongst the mothers, amongst the parents? Anything jump out?
Well, yeah, this is all this is it. This is what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Instead of being managed, you're mentored. All right. Instead of having a person, a disciplinary person, all right, in your birthing experience, it's for you to orchestrate. And what women are telling me is they would rather be nurtured, all right, than educated, really. They would rather someone nurture them. And in nurturing, they will, if I nurture you, if you're my client and I nurture you, you will just nurture your baby. It just happens that way. And it's based on the soul level connection rather than just physiology. And it's based on self-direction. I applaud couples who are self-directed and want to make their own choices. And it also stands on the matrix of instinctual responses. The instinctual responses of a couple is much more valuable to me than any piece of information coming from any other source. What I want to hear is what's your instinct about it? And then last but not least, this quantum paradigm is based on trust. All right. True trust and trust. There's a lot of love in the world. There could be more, but there's a lot of love in the world. But what there isn't is a lot of trust. I mean, I think trust is a global issue that we are all working on.
Mm,
And I think that will finally allow us to have an evolution of the promises, okay, that it is to be human, all right, of what we can do. I talk about, the duality, like night and day, man and woman, and all of this and that. But one of the biggest dualities is the quantum duality. Would you like to be a particle or a wavelength? Well, we're very good at being particles, but would you like to be a wavelength? Would you like to, you see what I'm saying? Well, this is the quantum physics is sort of for the layperson. I'm not a quantum physicist by any means, but quantum physics has really, really captured me and my fascination and my just just pursuit, okay, of what is the promise of evolution.
mm. Can I
You
make
know,
a quick book recommendation for you?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there's a book called The Flip by Jeffrey Kripal, I think is his name. I just read that in the last couple weeks, and it's about the unification of sort of science and humanities, and it goes deep into the quantum, very deep, and I think that you would enjoy it.
Well, I think so too. I love books like that, that really take you into places that on some level are real. All right. And with that, understanding that birth is an altered state. All right, we've talked about the fact that we just don't give birth in ordinary reality. In fact, that's where the pain is. That's where the questions are. That's where the doubt is. That's where the fear is. And if we just allow ourselves to go deeper and deeper and deeper in our births, we will come to a place of, of where you are guided by your internal compass rather than external factors. That's the quantum paradigm for me, to watch a woman and she invites her partner to go into these deeper realms. You don't have to do anything to get there. You don't have to pay a cent. You don't have to have a book, a guru, any money, anything. It's germane to who we are. If we just let go of ordinary reality, we will find ourselves in a place adjacent to that in which we have unfolded the gift of knowing, not just thinking and not even just feeling, but knowing. And this is power. This is empowerment. When a woman and her partner come into that place where they know stuff. And once a woman gives birth, she knows a lot. Okay, there's this Hispanic proverb that says, oh, a first time mom knows nothing, a second time mom knows everything. All right, how her body works, what she can expect from her partner, what labor is like, how to release the pain, all of that stuff. It's really gratifying for me to see women and families achieve that level of reverence for the magnitude of birth.
Hmm.
Mhm.
How do you guide or mentor women into that altered space whereby they are tapping into instinct and intuition and getting away from fear and judgment and shoulds?
Yeah. Okay. Couple of things. Um, I know that when women are pregnant, they're already in that altered state continuum. It's a default behavior, and you've noticed it, I'm sure. Okay, that your person changes. They're more emotional, they're deeper, they're more creative sometimes. It's not always just ordinary reality. Sometimes they're a little spacey, sometimes they're more mystical. All right. So what I do is I try to cultivate that with a woman. For instance, women ask me things because they know that I They know that I want to make you happy and I want you to be fulfilled. So how do you want to do prenatal care? Well, one woman said to me, well, Whapio, do you like to hike? And I was like, well, hiking light is good. Well, when we do our prenatal care, can we just take you to our favorite places? Because we worship in the great cathedral of nature. And I'm like, yes, take me there. I want to see what is what empowers you, what your reverence is attached to. And then once time a woman said, Wabio, do you like to dance? Well, I love to dance. She said, well, look, listen, come over to my house 45 minutes early. I have a yoga studio. And she said, you and I can dance. All right, we could just dance. You bring your music, I'll bring mine. So we just danced for 45 minutes, just dancing around and knowing how another woman moves and how you could move seamlessly with her without getting in her way, knowing when she's ready to focus on you and look at you, and but when she's ready to just allow herself to go way back or way deep. So I like to do what women ask me to do because I know that they're going to show me how they give birth, how they're going to give birth. And then once a woman said, Wabia, do you belong to the Y? And it was like the YMCA. She said, yeah. And I said, no, but I could. She said, okay, let's do that because I want to have my prenatal care at the Y. And I was like, okay. So here's what would happen. She would call me up around 5 o'clock and she'd say, let's go to the Y. And at 5 o'clock at the Y, all the daytime classes are over and the nighttime classes haven't begun. So you have this great big pool to yourself. So we would get in the pool and we would paddle out there under the diving board to the deep end. And we would just stay there. She would tell me everything. Everything from the deep end. She would tell me what her dreams were, what her fears were, how her partner who was cooking dinner while we were doing this at the Y, and we just did soul level connecting under the diving board in the deep end. All right. This is how I facilitate women going into altered states because all of those places are altered states: dancing, nature, and the deep end. All
Yeah.
right.
There's
So
something so beautiful about that. Like I picture that in a movie scene or a TV show of you swimming out into the deep end of the YMCA to go deep with a woman. Eh, And it's just such a beautiful thing that a public pool can be a holy place for profound connection.
yes,
That's
it's what you
cool.
make it. Mhm.
Yeah, and it sounds like the ways that link those three examples are you're helping to get people out of their heads and into the present moment of their body. Is that
Yes.
fair?
Yes, that's it. Bingo.
Okay.
And from there, they can take it. See, they know.
So then, okay, go ahead.
Well, okay, I was going to say, and another thing that brings people into altered states is the story, a story. So most of my clients ask me, Fabio, tell us a story. Have you been to any births? And do you have permission from the mom and dad to talk to, because, and I'm like, oh, yes, let me tell you what Francine did. Or, oh, do you know how Louise got out into her altered state or something like that? Or, well, she had a long labor, but she had to cross this bridge in her labor. And sometimes women do. They have to cross this bridge in labor. And what do we do for them? Well, we can't pull them out. All right. Otherwise, they have to go back in, but we can be waiting for them on the other side. We can be cheering them on. We can be witnessing them in one of the hardest, maybe, things that they've ever done. And so let me tell you that story of how this woman did that. Women love to hear stories about how other women birthed their babies. What position did she use? You know what I mean? Well, where was her partner? Was her husband there? Oh, every minute, And these are the things that keep women excited, all right? Knowing that someone really is invested in their birth with them, knowing that someone is trustworthy and can take them that way, all right? Knowing that no one's going to bother them or pull anything on them or switch bait. What is it when you bait and switch or something? That what you get is what you get here. and they trust me, and I trust them. And
Mm.
I see mainly very beautiful, beautiful births. All right.
So
So that's
you,
what I do to keep women in the altered states, the stories and and all of that.
yeah. So you must have seen hundreds and hundreds of births then, if you were a midwife for a couple decades. Like you,
Well, I was a midwife for 20 years. Okay.
yeah.
And I had a very bucolic practice, actually. I didn't work with inner city crack moms I worked with a lot of country women. All right. I worked with a lot of women who wanted large families. They were of different religious persuasions. Okay. And so I wouldn't say I've been to thousands and thousands of births. No, because I wanted I came into midwifery as a mother and a midwife at the same time. So I didn't really want to have a birth a week. All right. I wanted to have a birth a month sometimes so that I could really give women all of my time, energy, and attention. And so I would say that I have been to about 350 births. So not hundreds and hundreds, but 350 births in my apprenticeship and my 20 years of practice.
Yeah, and then you started teaching and hearing so many stories from so many women through the years. You must just be this
Oh, yeah, I have.
repository. Um, okay, so shifting a little bit to Kendra, my partner, is obviously pregnant, and we had a conversation with you a couple days ago that I might actually put out as a separate, like a bonus podcast, because um, while we did delve a little bit into our personal stuff, you also produce so much knowledge and wisdom that I feel like it would benefit a lot of people. And the crux of much of that conversation was, hey, I've never been a dad. I've never attended a birth. Kendra's never been a mom. She's never attended a birth. So what do we need to know, right? And we have this wise woman that's been in this space for decades talking to us. Um, and so maybe you could run through the way that you see the birth experience, because I know that you describe it in a really profound yet simple way that's easy to grasp, with the quietude and the light and the do you mind running through that? What is it, four or five different parts? I can't recall the details now, but
Like of a different a stages of birth. Okay,
yeah,
that what
yeah,
you okay.
yeah.
Well, yeah, I would love to do that. In fact, I have a paper on it. Uh, I guess it's like a monograph. Maybe it's about 20 pages on this, and I call it the holistic stages of birth. Okay, and I'm editing it, and I'm going to be finished with it by the end of August. So come to my website, and it'll be free for everyone who wants to,
Okay.
receive what I'm going to say now. Okay,
Perfect. So maybe I'll also like in the show notes for the podcast, I can put a link to for them to download that or go right to your website.
yeah, either way, I'm still working on it. Okay.
Okay.
I'm re-editing it after 30 years. Okay. So when I was about 10 years in practice, I saw something very different from my colleagues. I saw birth more as a journey rather than a labor. I saw birth as being physiological, but also metaphysiological as well, equally. I began to look through the lens of what I call mystical intelligence. And when I studied, I mean, I'm self-taught. And when I say that, I mean, I'm taught by many, many venerable authors. I'm not really self-taught. I'm taught by authors, but I never went to a program or anything like that. Okay. And so what I realized when I started talking, studying anatomy and physiology, which I love, I realized that anatomy and physiology without the mystical component is kind of flat, you know? And then when I would look at it through the mystical lens, I would say, well, looking at birth through the just only the mystical lens is kind of spacey. And I'm not flat and I'm not spacey. I'm mystically intelligent. I like my mysticism undergirded with intelligence, and I like my intelligence undergirded with mysticism. And I think that's a really good coupling. So that's one of the things that I talk about, and that's the way I teach, and that's the way I look at birth. And so what I was seeing was that a lot of my compadres and whatnot in birth were attached to still the very old paradigm of birth, first stage, second stage, third stage. And while that is physiologically okay, and I don't throw it away, there's way more than first, second, and third stage. Okay. There's a way more to the journey. And so I decided to rename some of the stages of labor, add a few more. Um, and I came up with this, as I say, monograph of like the holistic stories of birth. And I see that women do the same thing. You know, every woman is different, obviously. Every woman has a different labor, but there's an overarching pattern. And that's kind of what I'm talking about now. All right. And so some of the things that are important to me are how a mother embarks on a journey. All right. Now, some women, well, they take everything out of the kitchen cupboards and have it in the middle of the floor because they're never going to clean this up again for 18 years and they want their house to be really nice looking for a new baby. I've seen that furniture becomes relevant for dads. I go over to your house and the couch is on the curb. And I'm like, oh, you guys getting a new couch? And the dad will say, do you know how many ne'er-do-wells have slept on that old couch? I'm not putting my pure, pristine baby on that piece of furniture. So this is all kind of part of embarking where you know that you're going to take this journey and you know you're coming back with precious cargo and you know that couch is not part of it. All right.
Yeah.
So
I'm laughing, Whapio, because my life 2 days ago was Kendra had ordered new spice jars from the internet, and about 40 of these things arrived, and we had to what did she say? Everything needs to be taken out and reorganized in the kitchen.
there you
Everything.
have it.
So I sat there with nutmeg going into these little twisty jars, and we are in labels, and it's all alphabetized now. And yeah, I'm very familiar with that. And I'm sitting on a new couch.
Absolutely. That's a good one. All right. Oh, the
Yeah,
spice jars.
spice
Okay.
jars. It's real.
I
The
love it.
struggle is real. But
Okay, see
please,
that's embarking. Before
Mark.
we embark, we make sure everything is good, that we board the dog, we stop the mail, everything is good. The spice is in. So that's kind of like where we start. And some communities that I work with, when a mom is a couple of weeks from her due date, all of the women and all the young girls and whatnot, they go to the pregnant mom's house and they clean and they cook and they can and they fill her freezer. And I don't mean the one in the refrigerator, I mean that big one down in the basement so that she doesn't have to worry about food. You see, when she comes back, everything is in order here. This is what I love to see. All right, and I call it embarking. All right, because this is what we're doing. And then I've decided to use kind of like the metaphor of climbing the mountain. All right, the holy mountain. And so, what I say is that the first stage of labor, all right, is when we're there, we're at the mountain now, and I call it the foothills. And women can stay in the foothills for as long as they like. Sometimes women stay in the foothills a day or two. They're in a very early labor, not a whole lot is happening. It's not very painful. It's the foothills. The foothills are not really the slope. All right. It can be nice to be out in the foothills, actually. All right. And it's your early labor, it's your prelude. You know that you're going to make a commitment to the mountain, but right now you're in the foothills. All right. And and then so what I see is that in the foothills, they're very chatty, they're like, oh, who was that on the phone? Where's the dog? Does everybody go? Everybody, are we having a pre-labor party? Okay. And you know that, well, she's in the foothills. Okay. She hasn't opened a portal because I think we might have even talked about this, that there's a portal that opens to where you're really committed now to your birth, to the journey, to taking the journey to get your baby. All right. And it gets more serious. We go from like an ordinary reality of beta into a more sensual reality. You'll see her kind of like, that one was in my back, oh, they're getting a little longer. And you realize that she's detaching. She doesn't really care where the dog is anymore, and she doesn't really care about the phone. She just wants to be present with the sensations that she's feeling. This is now getting closer. We're still in the foothills, but we're getting closer for her to then commit to saying, I'm on. It's on. All right, I'm committed. So that's why sometimes women can take a while in early labor. That's not a problem. All right. The only problem is you don't want to wear yourself out. All right. You want to take it easy. And so that's the foothills. And then what I see is I call it the veil. There seems to be a veil between the foothills and actually on the mountain. And actually, what that is, it's the threshold of a portal. I call it the veil because it almost feels like that when a woman goes through. Here's what happened to me. Years ago, one time I went into a mom's home and I was at the bathroom sink and I was washing my hands. And all of a sudden I looked at myself in the mirror and I kind of saw this golden stuff going around. And then I saw these things on my fingers. And I'm not usually like that. Okay. That's not something that's part of my life. And it felt very trippy or something to me. And I didn't realize what it was for a while. But if I go into a woman's house and I have that, I call it an aura, and I have that aura where there's some golden stuff in the air, I know exactly where she is in labor. She has opened that portal. She's come through the foothills, moved through the veil, and we're on. But if I don't see it, I'm like, oh, well, we're working towards that. All right. These are things, auras that I get where I don't really have to check a woman's cervix or do anything to her. I just have to look at the air. And, I ask other midwives about this. I say, do you see something or do you have some kind of a thing that happens before things get really on? And women tell me, oh, yeah, there's a smell in the room. And I'm like, I don't get that one. What is that? What's it like? It's like a tang. It's the smell of birth. And I'm like, oh, all right, I don't get that one. One woman told me it's not gold. I see this little, like a red mist in the air. Oh, that's nice. Other women say, no, it's the way that density of the air in the room changes. It gets really like slow-mo. I'm like, I get that one too sometimes. I mean, I get the golden things, but I get the slow-mo, like everything is moving now in a different way, slower. All right. A lot of midwives get that. That's a big one. All right. So anyway, that allows me to check the progress of a woman's labor without having to do a vaginal exam or ask her a lot of questions. I can just read the air, if you will. And I know it sounds funny, but if you ask a lot of midwives, they know what you're talking about. Okay. All right. Because it's very real. So, what happens then is after she opens that portal, it's sort of like she's gone through the veil and things are going to change. And now she's going to find a more serious rhythm to her experience. The contractions are getting longer. They're a minute long now as opposed to 30 seconds in the foothills. They're a minute, they're 80, 70, 80, 90 seconds. I mean, they're getting stronger and longer. And you're sweating a little bit because you're climbing that mountain. And um, this is where pain relief comes into play. All right. If a woman is exhausted or if a woman is being talked to, or a lot of external forces are being like, oh, we need to change this. We need to do your blood pressure. We need to talk to you about something. This is sometimes where a woman would lose her footing. Imagine if you were climbing the mountain and then all of a sudden, here comes a helicopter saying, are you okay? We're going to download something for you. Here's some water. You know what I mean? And you're like, what? So I feel like when she's really on that mountain, all right, um, she'll she'll look to go deeper. She'll want to go deeper. She'll remember the stories that we talked about. She'll have her own instincts. She'll look at her partner. She may want only eyes for her partner because it's getting longer, it's getting stronger. It's really real right now. Okay. And I need to find my rhythm with this. And you'll see women do all kinds of things. They'll walk gently, or they'll, once I worked with a woman who she would feel a contraction coming and she would run. She would try to outrun it. All right. And then it would catch her and she would be like, oh, it's got me. But that's how she worked with her labor. Okay. And women love that story. Okay. The woman who outran her contractions. Oh,
It's a
but
great book title.
so uh women, women do all kinds of things to get to find their rhythm. And in my opinion, they usually do. They go into like a theta state where if they can minimize the distractions, they will hear her baby, her partner, his instincts, her instincts, whatever. It's really, you'll see her moving away from ordinary reality, and you will want to go with her. All right. And sometimes you get the invitation, all right, and sometimes not. And she's counting on me to not let anyone in that isn't of this realm, all right, to be the doorman, or to notice that if something is out of line in the room, take care of that for me, okay? And it's more like I've got your back. All right. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm telling you that I've got your back, whatever you do.
Hmm.
And that's a big difference. And then I want to talk about this thing. We talk about it when your cervix and your lower uterine segment are almost pulled up and your baby's head is no longer even in the uterus. It's in the yoni, vaginal area. It's we're being going to be birthing shortly, or, you know, so, so what happens here, a lot of times the contractions are long and strong. Sometimes this is the most open a woman has ever been. And sometimes you're not sure, the contractions are long, it's really hard. And what I see happening here right now, because this is where a lot of times women lose it and say, I can't do it this anymore. I can't do it. Where's my ride? All right. And and you can tell she's almost there. We need to have a name for this thing, this phenomenon where you went to massage school and then a month before you graduated, you decided you weren't going to go back. What? Or you're running a marathon and then just you can see the finish line, but you're like, slow down and I need a rest.
Yeah,
Okay. It's this phenomenon where when you're almost at the top, you let it go. You know what I mean?
I
Okay, this is
do. Yes.
the thing. So this
So
happens in labor. This happens in transition. She can see the top of the mountain, but she's like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. No, let's go in. No, I'm not going to do this. And you're like, okay, but you're like, all right, what do you need? And various women need various things. Some of them need reassurance. Some of them need being left alone. The Japanese midwives taught me that when a woman is flailing like that and can't manage her energy and all, and no, it's too hard, I can't get there, but you're almost there. No, I don't want it. Well, they wrap you up in a sheet like a cocoon, and they put you in another room until you can gather yourself together. All right. And then you call and you say, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to come out. Now, I see this happening. I see that a woman will often not necessarily have to get wrapped up, but she will realize that her energy is way out there and she needs to collect it. She collects it and collects it. All right. And it's hard to explain, but you'll see it if you're not bothering her. You'll see that she's collecting every single atom of who she is across the vastness of time and space to come here to me right now and make a solid core. And every particle of me, every particle of me that's gone to other galaxies or everything, I command, I command it back. Why? Because I am going up that mountain. I will make an act of will. And when I make an act of will, it's not a suggestion, it's not a guideline, it's not an affirmation, it's an act of will. I will do this. Imagine this. Some women, it's the first act of will they've ever made. And some women make acts of will every day to live. All right. But it's amazing to see a woman gather herself together and then have this adrenaline rush and have this oxytocin, okay, and just be that person that goes up to the top of the mountain. And I feel like a lot of times we take that time away from a woman. This is the time when she learns to make an act of will, and this is the time we feel so much empathy and sympathy that we want to carry her up the hill. Don't do it. Don't do it. This is not about being in agony, by the way. If someone's in agony, we would certainly not allow that to continue. But give a woman a moment. She knows what she's doing. She'll come into it. She'll make that act of will. And then on that journey through the foothills and up the mountain to the temple to find the temple, all of a sudden, she is the temple. She's at the top of the mountain. She had her, I call it summoning. All right, we call it transition. I call it she summons. She summons herself. And the Mennonite ladies that I work with, they appreciated this so much. They would say, God summoned me. God summoned me. And I see it in all walks of life, in all spiritual traditions. In the birthing realm, there is a time to make an act of will. There's a time in that labor when it's too much for you that you collect yourself and you go up that last slope and you become the temple. And that's your quietude now. You've come out of the fray of long, strong contractions that are taking you to different places. Okay, you come out of doubt. You come out of any fear. You are the temple now, and this is so meaningful. And you have your quietude, and it's about an hour, sometimes half an hour. Unfortunately, we are not. That's not one of the cells, the stages of labor that we have in the medical model. The medical model says, "Oh, push." Well, how many people run all the way up the hill, get to the top, and then go right back down? I mean, that is not even physiologically normal. When you get to that quietude, when you get to that sanctuary, you you listen, you watch, you wait, you see what messages have come for you. I ask people, what happened in your quietude? And they're like, Whapio, did you hear those eagles? I'm like, oh, yes, I did hear eagles. Yes, yes, yes. What did they tell you? And women say the darndest things. One woman said to me, well, when I got up at the top of the mountain, there was this huge block of turquoise. She was a Native American woman. There was this huge block of turquoise, and my baby was in there. And and I didn't know how to get my baby out. I wanted my baby. So I put my hands right there and I walked right through it. The doors to that block of turquoise opened and I picked up my baby and I said, we're going home. All right, these are the things that happen in the quietude. So I hope we could hear that and not take that away from women. It's just an hour, maybe. It's perfect. She needs a rest. What is she doing? She may be sleeping a little bit. She may be trancing out a little bit. All right. Why wake her up? She's fine. We have this idea that if we don't understand that this is part of the birth itself, we'll think something's wrong. And I'm here to assure you that nothing is wrong. Okay. I once was honored to work with a woman. Actually, she was 16 years old, who had an 8-hour quietude and then birthed a 9-pound, 2-ounce baby in the veil. All right, her waters never broke. No tears in 7 contractions. So watch and wait. Less is more. The less you do, the more you'll know. So, I mean, I don't want to take this whole time up. You're not, do you know what I mean? So I could stop here.
Good. I was thinking about that line, the less you do, the more you'll know. That's
So
deep.
it's deep. It's about birth. The less you do, the more you'll be shown what the body is capable of. I
Mm.
don't think we give the body enough credit. We are a lot of the things that are measures that we use to have a birth, and this must be done and that must be done. No, I don't think so. I think our body is way smarter than we give it credit for. And I think my body is much smarter than someone else's body when it comes to external influences. I'll check my body anytime. All right. And that's another thing that women are not always used to doing, trusting their body over external influences, if you will.
Yeah. I think one thing I would add that's become more readily apparent to me observing the process up close firsthand is just how ridiculously weird and amazing and miraculous all of it is. And
Yeah.
like, I know and I have known how babies are made. And like, but then I found myself wandering around the world and looking at people and thinking, like, each of us has lived inside of a woman. Like, that's crazy. And even just the other night, we were laying in bed and we call our little baby to come Squish, and Squish had the hiccups, and I was laying there with my hand on Kendra's belly, feeling a human inside of her have the hiccups, and it was just this like surreal and miraculous thing that from nowhere, from an act of connection, we create life inside of a body and then birth that out into the world. And you've referred to that, I think, as like carrying light or birthing the light. Um, and so yeah, it seems almost impossible to separate that physiological component from the divine mysticism that you alluded to. Like they're inherently linked.
Yeah, absolutely. Equally, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you previously, before we started recording, asked me a question, and then you said, well, maybe I'll ask you later on the podcast, but I think it was about like impending fatherhood or holding the charge. Is that the line that you use?
That's the phrase I use. Yeah.
Yeah, and so maybe we can transition to for the person supporting the individual during labor or through this initiation,
Mm.
like Whapio, hit me. I've never done this before. Like, what makes a great support person? What do I need to know? What do I need to remember? How do I prevent myself from screwing this whole thing up?
Okay. Well, you'll never screw it up. All right. It's why? Because it's all perfect. It's already been done and it's all perfect. Okay. And because I know that you are personally uh, uh, invested in understanding the magnitude of birth, you'll never make a mistake. Okay. All right. And for fathers, I have a manifesto for men. And here it is. Number one, be yourself. Don't let anyone tell you how you're supposed to be during this birth. Don't let anyone say, "Oh, you need to do this for her." Be yourself, and if if sounds right, do it, and if it doesn't, no. No one gets to tell you who you are. You are the father, all right, and you'll know just by being yourself. And I think I grabbed this thing the other day. It was oh, I don't know, I can't find it. It was the dad. Here it is. Options for the dad. Okay. In the quantum approach. No, this isn't it. I'm sorry. This will be edited, right?
Yeah, you're good. We're fine here. You can't make a mistake. It's all perfect. I was just told that.
Okay. So here's what I was writing the other day. What do fathers do at births, as being themselves? Well, it
Yeah.
might be your self might just be the person who holds up the wall. Or you might be the mix master. All right. You might be the tub and water officer. You might be simply the witness. You might be there for comfort and love. You might be there for running interference. Well, you might be her homeopathic or herbal advisor. Okay. You might be her walker. She wants to walk and sway with you. Okay. Oh, you may be playing the music and being the DJ. Oh, you may be telling jokes. So, but be yourself. Be whoever you are in all of those. You're anything that you bring is you. All right. So that's number one. Number two, know that you have instinctual responses to this birth. Just know that you do. Don't let anyone tell me you don't, or anyone tell you you don't. Don't let anyone find something else for you to do. Be yourself and know that you have instinctual responses. Okay, here's a story that came to me from a young woman. She took a doula class, I don't know, about 3 years ago. And then about a year ago, she called me and she said, Whapio, I really had to talk to you about this. She said, I was in labor. I had two lovely midwives. It was taking a while. They suggested breaking my membranes, okay, that help maybe make the labor progress more. So they asked me to do that. The midwives were like, would you like us to do that for you? And all of a sudden, my husband said, no, we wouldn't. I looked at him and I was like, well, okay. And the midwife was like, no, it's really safe. And, we'll be very gentle. He said, absolutely not. And she said, well, honey, why? And he said, I don't know, but we're not doing that. She was like, well, okay, I'm going to go with my husband. And then she said, I had to call you because after the birth, we realized that the place where the little amni cot would break the bag would go right in. And right there were some veins and arteries that were not attached to the placenta. And if she had ripped through those, I would have had a massive bleed. And she said, he didn't know what he knew. He just knew he knew. That's my
Mm.
husband for you. Okay. So know that you have instincts. Number three, feel free to act on them. Feel free to speak up. You're not mousy. You're the father. All right. You're you're holding this birth, really. And then number three was okay. So number one, be yourself. Number two, you know that you have instincts. Number three, be aware of it and act on it. Number four, also know and embody that you hold the charge for this birth legally, lawfully, familially, socially, culturally, religiously. The father holds the charge. The father is the head of the family. No outside influence is in charge of the family. The father is bringing that baby home. There's no doctor that's going to send you off with a college fund. The father is responsible, meaning the father, I translate that is the father holds the charge. Now, I'm not saying the father's in charge and whatever he says we're going to do. I mean that he holds this. He holds the presence of who takes the responsibility and accountability for this mother and child. The father holds the charge. Don't forget that you have that. You are that. All right. And act on it. Okay, here's another little snippet. Um, a friend of mine, her name is Emily. She is a midwife and a doula, depending on what a woman wants. And she told me that every time she works with a dad and mom, she always tells them that now, dad, you're holding the charge from the birth. And a lot of dads are like, I don't think so, or that's why we hired you, or what does that even mean? Or no, I don't have time to read 10 books. No, it's not like that at all. You hold the charge for the birth. You understand, you can see what's going on. You know if somebody is making your partner unhappy. You know if she's being bullied. You know if she's comfortable or not. You're just going to hold the charge and get her what she needs. You are her perfect intimate advocate. This is what we tell dads. And a lot of times they have that look on their face like, huh. And then The next time you see them, they're like, okay, so if I hold the charge, what does that mean? All right. Well, what would I be doing? And that I feel like men, when they're presented with a very emotional task, like you're holding the charge for the birth, they're like, well, wait a minute, that let's back up. Let me figure out what that means. Let me kind of put that in English and and then they come forth and they're like, okay, so what do I do? Well, you just be you. You do all these other things. You be you, you have instinctual responses. So she said, I told this to the dad, and he was like, well, okay, I can do that. Sure. All right, I can do that. And what happened was this: his wife had had a seizure during the pregnancy, and no one knew where it came from. No one knew why. There were no deleterious effects from it. It was just they had a seizure. So at that point, they decided they would have their baby in a hospital. They had wanted a home birth, but they felt the mom especially was like, no, I that was terrifying. I don't I want to be in a hospital in case that ever happens again. The doctor said, I doubt it will. We're not seeing any reason. Anyway, they were my friend Emily said, the dad and I, they were in a very small room. She said, I think it was a cleaning closet at one point. There wasn't much room in there. And all of a sudden, the mom had a seizure. And they came running down from the nurses station, and people were running in the room. And it was a tiny room to begin with, and here comes one person, here comes another person. One person is saying, sit her up. Another person is saying, lie her down. Another person is saying, give her a drink. Another person is saying, put a rag in her mouth. And Emily and the dad looked at each other like, this is nobody knows what they're doing here. This is ridiculous. And all these people are in the room, and it's like, and then the doctor comes in flying, skirts flying, and with her clipboard, and all of a sudden the dad stands up and says, there's too many people in this room. I need you to leave. Well, everybody started leaving, even the doctor. And then the dad said, Doc, will you stay? She said, okay. And the dad said, well, all right. What just happened? Well, your wife has had another seizure, and you know, I don't know why. Everything looks fine. We've got the baby on the monitor, and everything looks good. And you know, and the dad said, well, what would you do? She said, oh, I would have a C-section. And so the dad said to his wife up here, she's sitting in the bed. Well, what do you think, hon? Oh, she said, that was terrifying. Yes, let's have a C-section. He said, are you sure? Because, he really wanted a home birth, the vaginal. But she said, darling, I want a C-section, please. The dad said, so it is. So the doctor said, okay, I'll get everything ready. All right. And we'll do a C-section as quick as we can. And the dad said, Doc, before you leave, he said, come here. And the mom was lying in the bed, and the dad was on one side of her, all right, up by her head, and the doctor came around and was on the other side. So there they are, the dad, mom, and the dad and the doc and the mom, all right. And the dad says to the mom, to the doctor, he said, well, we are disappointed in that we're having a C-section, all right, but that's the way it is. And he said, I want you to give my wife the best C-section you have ever done. I want this C-section to be the highest and best ever. So the doctor looked at him and looked at her, and she said, I will. I will. And then he went down and held the mom's feet. All right, it was a she. She went down and held the mom's feet and said, don't worry about a thing. I've got you.
Hmm.
Right? Now that's how it could be. And you see that dad, he just was himself. There's too many people in this room. I need you to leave. And because he commanded the fact that he holds the charge for the birth, everyone left. Even the doctor was leaving. All right.
Hmm.
So This is what I mean by holding the charge. This is what I mean by instinctual understandings. This is what I mean by just being yourself, you know?
Yeah.
Ow, huh?
It's so good. You've really landed that in me. And like the playful younger part of me imagines making a joke and then Kendra frowning and shaking her head and like Wapio told me to be myself. Like I'm just being myself. I have permission.
No, you don't get to pull me into that. Uh,
No,
well,
that's beautiful. Thank you.
well, all right. There's a few more things that I just want to highlight. And
Okay.
one of them is know that you hold the charge and be aware of it, but also act on it. You have the right, the legal right to say, I don't like what's happening here, or she said no, or can we listen to her, or whatever. Now that's not necessarily only for a hospital birth, but usually that's where you see that. Most midwives are going to listen to you, you know. And all right. And okay, so then what I say is also after you have been aware that you hold the charge and that you have acted on it, you're primed to act on holding the charge, that you show up in your highest and best, that you do that. If it's hard for you, if you're intimidated by a doctor or a nurse, move forward. If you don't agree with your midwife, but you don't want to disagree with her, you be your highest and best. Your wife, your partner, your baby deserves it of you. They deserve your highest and best. All right.
Mm.
No excuses. All right. So that's my manifesto for men.
Beautiful. It's really good.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, is that going to be part of your 20-page document that you alluded to?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And
Absolutely.
excuse my ignorance, Wapio, but do you have a book? Have you written a book?
Well,
Or is this going to
I
be part of
this
it?
is this I've written this little thing here. Okay, it's kind of a book, all right, and
Yeah.
it's Quantum Midwifery, Altered States, and the Journey of Undisturbed Birth by Whapio. All right, and this is what I'm re-editing and revamping because I wrote this 30 years ago and a lot has changed, okay, and a lot in the way I would explain things. So that's kind of what I have coming. And I was thinking about putting it in a book so that it could be I'm putting it on the website so anyone can have it, but then I'm thinking of putting it in a book where someone could buy it and give it to someone as a gift for out of in
Yeah, yeah.
pregnancy or something like that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And nowadays with self-publishing and all the options available, I think that's a great idea.
Well, thanks for that affirming thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Um, okay, so I'm conscious of time, I'm conscious of life. Is there anything that we haven't hit upon that you, as final words of wisdom or advice, need to communicate, or are you feeling pretty good with how it's gone?
Well, I don't know if we talked about this when we met before, which was a wonderful experience meeting Kendra and having her open up so much and so beautifully, and you
Mm,
too, of course. All right, you being the holder of that space for her and for me to offer anything. And the last thing is remember that this is your baby and no one else should touch your baby for a while. You know what I mean? Don't relinquish your baby to anyone else. Don't let anyone colonize your baby. Okay. Did we talk about the colonization
We
thing?
did,
Sort of.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
just make sure that as the dad, you know where your baby is at all times and who's got the baby. And oftentimes it's you. All right. If the mom needs to get up and go to the bathroom or, doing something, you are the person actually that is most invested in this baby. So you should have this baby in your arms at all times if they're not
Mm,
in the mom's arms or grandma's or something like that. Okay. And
okay.
anything that can be done with the baby in your arms. Okay. You don't have to weigh the baby right now. The baby's not going to gain a lot of weight in the next 2 hours, just be cognizant that this is your baby and um, you own your baby. No one else does. Okay.
Mm, okay.
But otherwise I feel like that's part of the father holding the charge.
Mm,
All right. You never let your baby like, where's the baby? Or no, 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 the baby doesn't go over there. You can do it with my arms, that kind of thing. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
thanks for listening to me, and thanks for having me on here. And
no, I'm honored, truly. This is wonderful. Kendra and I have different ways of seeing the world, and I'm a recovering scientist, very analytical, very skeptical, and she's much more firmly planted in the garden of the woo and the magical astrological divine. And so we navigate that, and she often will send me resources and I will send her articles and resources. And she sent me a previous podcast that you were on, and my initial reaction was kind of like that internal eye roll of like, oh, here we go. Who's this? And then I listened to it and I was so pleasantly surprised by how much affection and admiration I had for you and the way that you spoke about this entire process and the work that you've done. And so I just want to thank you for coming on and saying yes to my random email, inviting you on this weird long distance love bombs podcast. And I'm grateful that you took the time to meet with Kendra and I as well. That was really generous and very helpful. And yeah, I hope more people dive into your work. And so on that note, I know you have a website, you have a program where you teach midwifery. You're going to have this 20-page tome that we'll link to, but is there anywhere else that you want to direct people? Is that
well,
the
I offer doula classes a couple of
oh
times a year, and I offer something called the Illuminated Wise Woman. And
oh
you can come
what's
to
that?
our the Illuminated Wise Woman is for women who really don't want to be doulas or midwives because they're not the lifestyle isn't akin to what they can do right now. They might have 5 kids or something and can't go out in the middle of the night, do a birth, but they want to be part of the, wise woman community and what can we do for women? So I have a program there where, and I also teach homeopathy. I have a 5-month homeopathic program starting in the fall. No, starting in January. So
You do
I
all
do
kinds of
a lot of
stuff.
that. Yeah, I do a lot of stuff.
Okay. Busy lady.
Lucky me, right? I meet the best people in the world. I love my job. That's what I'm telling you. I meet the best people in the world as evidenced right now.
Thank you. And I think that energy comes across in your demeanor and your personality and even the way that you spoke today. It's like my impression, having done, hundreds of these conversations now, is like, oh, this lady really is where she is supposed to be in the world and she's doing what she should be doing. And I love when I come across very aligned people who are like doing it. We went on a big hike in Banff a couple weeks ago, and this Via Ferrata up a mountain, and we had this guide that was just so perfectly suited to that job. And his disposition, his personality, his humor, his compassion, it was like, oh, this guy is doing exactly what he should be doing in the world. And I feel that from you, and I know that you have impacted a tremendous amount of humans through your work, and hopefully this podcast helps to spread that ripple out even further. So thank you again, and hope to talk to you soon.
Well, amen to that. Okay. All right. And by the way, thank you for all the work you're doing. I feel like we're kindred spirits in that realm.
Okay, that was Whapio. And as mentioned, she does doula training, she does homeopathy, she has a program called the Illuminated Wise Woman, she has an online portal called the Matrona. She's got a link to a paper that she wrote that was referenced in the conversation also. I'll put all that in the show notes. Thank you for being here. I hope you learned a lot. I hope it was as eye-opening and heart-filling, as soul-warming as it was to me. I just thought she was so delightful to be around. You know what else is delightful? You are delightful, and you are delightful to be around too. So thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. All of the support, the 5-star reviews, for sharing this with people that you think might like it, for continuing to try to make kindness cool and compassion commonplace in a world that is so desperately in need of those things. I appreciate you. I adore you, and I will talk to you soon.